Okay, so I want to talk a bit about my work. Those of you who follow me will see that I map the globe a lot, or look at certain prehistoric or historical sites. Now, I first started doing this about 7 years ago, looking at places like Egypt, Göbekli Tepe, Nazca Lines, Easter Island, the Pacific Islands, Australia, New Zealand, and along the way I've picked up quite a few contacts who have similar interests in ruins. Some are professors, some are historians, some of you are leading professionals in the fields, and with an open communication what I've got with quite a lot of you, you give me a more clear insight how to look at certain places. So say if I'm looking at Turkey, I've got a few contacts in Turkey. If I'm looking at Australia, I've got a few contacts in Australia. If I'm looking at somewhere in Scotland, I've got contacts in Scotland. So if I'm looking at Bolivia or Peru, I've got contacts down there. Anyway, so the reason why I started doing what I do, I was just like interested in Egypt to start with, and Nazca and Tiwanaku and Pumapunku, and just got me looking at areas. And when you start looking at prehistoric sites, or like the ancient sites going back to about 8,000 years ago, you start seeing structures, you know, they actually start getting bigger. So obviously Stonehenge is quite big, but like if you're looking at Woodhenge, that's smaller. So it doesn't necessarily, I mean, Woodhenge is like 1,500 years older than Stonehenge, so sites don't necessarily do get bigger when you're looking at it at that perspective. But anyway, getting back to certain sites around the globe, when you start looking at certain areas, you'll see a certain age of structures and styles tend to be the same. Say the places in Egypt will be similar to the ones in Peru, and equally there'll be the same kind of structures in Australia in places, but yet in other places in Australia absolutely no similarities at all, no connection there. Equally when you're looking at Africa, you know, you can be looking at Egypt, you'll see all the pyramids, the huge pyramids, but then down the Nile, you go to Meroe, you'll see the smaller pyramids. But then if you look at Meroe and then look further east, say 50 miles, the structures are completely different again. They're more flat and more compact. So were they the same builders, or were they a different kind of people, a different kind of tribe? Or did something happen in between like a huge flood or an earthquake, or, you know, for the shift to change. Because it's like looking at a painting, you know, it's like trying to compare a cubist painting to a pop art painting. You know, it's just completely different. And we're only talking 50 miles. So when I started realising that, I started realising that it doesn't matter where you map on the globe, the stone structures are like accents. You know, it's like saying a London accent is the same as a Yorkshire accent. They're not, they're completely different. It's like saying a Yorkshire accent is the same as a Lancashire accent. Completely different. It's like saying a Scottish accent is like an Irish accent. Completely different. And the builds are completely different. So, I mean, you might have a round henge at Newgrange, and then you might have a round henge up at Scarborough, but then come further downland, come towards the lowlands, the structures are completely different again. You look at the around the Lake District, structures are completely different again. The more squared and like cubist looking. So I started thinking, perhaps the stones and the structures of the stones and the layouts are like accents. So when people say like medieval builders all built the same like medieval castles, and no, they didn't. Because while people were living up in the high hills and in the castles, you get the lowlanders still living in the round cyst shaped roundhouses. So yeah, in the Brocks. So when you're looking at the landforms and the land formations and the structures, you have to be constructing and deconstructing at the same time, and trying to figure out which timescale fits which structure, the L shapes, the rectangles, the squares, the triangles. You have to figure out the arrow shapes. The arrow shape has been around for thousands of years. You know, if you look at Australia in certain places, you can see the ancient tracks. You can see the ancient tracks where they've put the stones down in huge arrow formations. So they're like the Nazca lines. That kind of structure, and they put the round, or they might not be round structured balls, they could be, you know, blocks, quite big blocks, but they'll be like 500-foot arrows, and then at the side of it you'll see like a rabbit shape or a heart shape or another arrow going into a different direction. But the main thing, there was the foundations, and for some unknown reason they hadn't carried on building what they'd started. You know, they hadn't started building onto the foundations. But yeah, look up the valley, say 200 miles, or the outback rather, and you can see where they started building those structures, and these like huge temple complexes. So they did progress. So perhaps, you know, say 10,000 years ago, somebody laid the foundation stones, but for whatever reason, whether it was a dry spell, whether it was a wet spell, they didn't finish that area. They went off and built somewhere else. Now, when you map Australia, some places are huge, huge stone complexes. Huge. Now, the stones could be weathered, but they might not be. They might have been constructed. They might have been layer upon layer, generation after generation, adding, adding, adding. And because they was left alone to their own devices, they managed to carry on building these huge structures. When you look in at Africa in places, around Lake Turkana, there's some very, very odd shapes down there. But there's a lot of mining going on in Africa, a hell of a lot of mining going on in Africa. So you'll pick on up an area, and you can see the ancient structures and the beautiful flower shapes, absolutely gorgeous flower shapes. And that is, if you look where Lake Turkana is, which is the cradle of mankind, to the east, literally 20 miles east, are these beautiful flower shapes, absolutely beautiful flower shapes, huge things, and heart shapes, beautiful heart shapes with lots of circles within the heart, all done by stone, all done by hand. And these must be quite big stones for you to be able to see them from Google Map, or Google Earth rather. But again, they're no different than what the Aborigines were doing in Australia, except the Aborigines were doing arrows. Now everybody, when you think of arrows and arrow glyphs, most people would think the native Indian in America. But I've seen so many arrows done by so many different arrow structures all over the globe. Small arrows, big arrows, huge megalithic stone arrows. Lake Chad, absolutely brilliant around there. Arrows, there's eagles, there's owls chasing eagles, on rocks, big, massive, big rock formations. These are like 400 or 500 foot in that, in the actual overall structure. Do you know who built these things? Who built these things? Now, yeah, I could Google the Bible and see if there's anything in there about owls and hawks, and I'm sure I'll find something in there about owls and hawks. But the trouble is, where I'm trying to get my head around things is these structures and the stones and the boulders, what they're made from, are absolutely ginormous. And man would have had to be ginormous to have made these things. Now these structures in Chad, around Lake Chad, there's 8 volcanoes around Chad. So obviously, if man's constructing things like that, these huge eagle shapes and huge owl shapes, then obviously he's making them out of something. And if there's lots of volcanic soft clays or mud or material to work with, then perhaps he was using the volcanic material to build these structures, to build these stones, and with time they've just got older and older and older, and weathered, and anyway. So yeah, so 7 years I've been at this now, and I'm always working at least 8 projects at any one time, 10 projects. So my head's always in different places. Like I'm working on Easter Island at the minute. I'm working on a place up in Scotland. In fact, I'm working on about 5 places in Scotland at the minute. I'm working on a place around Caithness. There's a huge, it's a huge cat hummock, a sweaty bollock, and I've just had word back from Rycams that they didn't know about it, so they don't know about it now. So that's quite a good, it's quite a good feeling when you've found something, you've located something, and then you show the professionals of archaeology at Rycams, and you ask them if a certain place has been logged and recorded, and they come back to you and say, no, we didn't know nothing about it. It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling, because now they can log that, they can get the boots on the ground, they get the right people in there to do a proper report, and because I'd found it, and because I've located it, I suppose they'll have to refer back to me as the finder. It's quite magical in a way, because it kind of gives me hope that the stuff what I do find, and the stuff what I let people see, it's just that it's that mystery. It's that, yeah, somebody was there at one point, and yeah, no, they didn't know about it recently. You know, it's bringing the ancient, it's bringing the prehistoric into the present day. But anyway, getting back to people who have helped me along the way, because I'm an artist. I'm not an archaeologist. I'm a researcher. And what inspires me is the fact that my forefathers, your forefathers, our forefathers, who walked the earth 10,000 years ago, the survivors of the Ice Age, didn't stand still. They kept going forward. They kept going forward, they kept discovering, they kept finding that mystery, because they would have had to find a mystery to recycle the stones and the structures, and so they've deconstructed and reconstructed and then deconstructed and reconstructed, and it's an evolving thing. So what I like to do is, when I find somewhere out of the ordinary, I like to save the coordinates and then put them inside a bottle. Now the bottle, all the bottle rest is a vessel basically. It's just a vessel. It's just an instrument. It's a carry case. That's all it is. It's like having a handbag. It's just a vessel, and within the vessel, within this constructed vessel what I've made, is the ruins, the ancient prehistoric ruins what I've found. Now, for people to find that ruin now, would have to buy this, take that off, undo it, look inside there, and you'll find the coordinates to an ancient site. Now that is just a musical bottle, an antique musical bottle with a Bakelite hairdryer on the top. It's got a black tube from I think it's a car part what I had. And then it's got some bells on it. So inside there is the purple Tasmanian devil stone. Now I've just let you know where it is. It's in Tasmania, but you don't know exactly where it is. But all you need to know now is it's a purple Tasmanian blue devil stone. And yeah, I put the coordinates inside bottles, and the bottles are just vessels. In this one, in that bottle, is my Heber Ho coordinates. Now I'll tell you where it is. It's in Heber Ho, but you don't know exactly where it is. You'd have to look at the coordinates to zoom down onto it. Now that cliff there is the size of the cliffs of Dover. It's absolutely huge, huge. And I've been studying that now for about 5 years, and you know what, 4 years. And it never stops surprising me. I'm constantly surprised and finding different things. And it's so interesting because it's got a man with a pointed hat on it. Now that part of the island, there was a volcanic eruption about 35,000 years ago. So obviously that horned, if it's a temple, I call it a temple structure. You know, there must have been a horned god about 35,000 years ago what people worshipped. So when you think about this blue Tasmanian devil, and then you've got a huge horn structure on a cliff face, and the cliff face has got a cliff face with a pointed hat, then you start thinking, hang on a minute, that was 35,000 years ago. Who were these people? And then other bottles have got these red devils. Can you see? I call that the red devil. And that is on an old trade route going from China to India. And it's got like I don't know, it's like a strange face, but it's got feet. Can you see? And again, these places are miles away from habited places, you know, like modern day places. These are where the ancients were. So yeah, so that red devil there, the coordinates are on that piece of paper there. So, and the bottles are sealed. Once I put them in a bottle, I seal the bottle off. And then I make it so people can't open them. So to get inside the bottle, you'd have to smash the bottle. This bottle here has got this ancient stone pyramid. It's a very, very ancient pyramid. Now this one is quite special. It's quite special. It's obviously, I'd say it's megalithic, if not older. And it's a huge stone pyramid. And where it is, it's situated between South Africa and South America. It's on an island. And it is an absolutely gorgeous pyramid. Now when you think of pyramids, you think of Egypt. You think of the Khufu pyramid at Cairo, or you think of the White Pyramid in China. And there's pyramid structures all over the world. There's pyramid structures in Sardinia. There's pyramid structures, I've seen them all over the place. Mexico's full of pyramids. So what I'm thinking, because of where this pyramid is, because it's in between South America and South Africa on an island, did these pyramid builders actually, could they, if they were building pyramid structures, megalithic pyramid structures, whenever they built that, then were they building ships? Could they build ships? Could they have got to Rapinu, Easter Island? Could they have gone then to Heave a Haw? Or perhaps there was an island of Heave a Haw where there was a volcanic eruption, the island sank, and these were the ancestors. Or perhaps the ancestors managed to sail to Australia. You know, so when you find these things, these structures, and you know the modern day man hasn't been there, because there's no sign of any modern man, then you know somebody at some point in time has been to these islands, has built a megalithic structure, and for whatever reason left it. But who knows, there might be, underneath that pyramid, there might be a secret chamber, there might be a secret burial. And that burial would hold the key to a journey what man's not even been on yet. So the reason why I put things in a bottle and seal it is because, like I said, the bottle is only a vessel. And it's a vessel like a ship. And I guess to get to that structure, you need to go on a ship, because you ain't flying in there. Because there's no airports. And that's the beauty, that's another beauty. I find things where there's no airports, where there's no chance of getting an airport in there. So that way, the only way people are going to get there is A, to get on a plane, then to get on a boat or an helicopter, if they're lucky, to get to where these places are, because that is the only way you're going to get there. Either on the back of a horse, a donkey, or an emu. But it's just a little bit of fun, and it's just a constant reminder to let people know. No, it's not a conspiracy. I don't believe in conspiracies. Nothing's a conspiracy. That is not a conspiracy. That is not a conspiracy. That is an ancient sacred structure what somebody has left there for you to find. So